Hey everyone, welcome to the 2020 Make It Big conference. I'm your host, Beatrice Este with BigCommerce, and I'm here today with Kevin Buechler, Director of Learning and Development here at BigCommerce. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us here today. I'd love to have you kick things off by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about how you got started in e-commerce.
Sure. I'm really excited to be here. Someone who's gotten to see how great Make It Big's been over the years. And it's just fantastic to be involved with it. So I got involved in e-commerce probably a similar way that a lot of other folks did, because very rarely do you hear someone who said, I started my career in e-commerce. It's grown so much. The opportunities have been there. But around 10 years ago, I went from traditional education. I was a coach, I was a teacher, I was an administrator, and then caught the tech bug. Started in corporate training. I was traveling globally for, at that time, video conferencing. So it was the beginning of seeing the world of video go from being an on-premise, very highly regulated industry to starting to get into different companies, innovators who came in and disrupted and started making really great technology that was available for easy consumption. So when the opportunity of BigCommerce came along, and I had the conversation with the folks on, well, all that you learned through the video industry, that's exactly where e-commerce is right now. Going from traditional on-premise, less flexible, more expensive options to being options that were much more open for folks to build their businesses. And I know it sounds very aspirational, but the aspect of helping people build their businesses and grow in ways they never thought of before e-commerce was really exciting. So for the past 6+ years, I've been very lucky to be a part of working with lots of different companies and different employees on building their careers in e-commerce.
Well, let's go ahead and dive right in. Tell me a little bit about what a career in e-commerce looks like and how has it evolved over the years?
It's a great question. So the career in BigCommerce, it's an interesting question. I always say it's kind of funny to look at it because it's so many different careers that most folks traditionally think it's coding, right? It's classic tech, which is obviously a big part of it. Right? Every platform, the quality of it is going to allow you to build the rest of the business on it. But e-commerce is so entrepreneurial that the folks that we work with come from marketing, come from design, sales, education, traditional support. So the second part of your question is how has it evolved? Is as the technology and as the people using the technology has become more mainstream and has become more open for lots of different business owners, all those jobs that go into having a traditional business, whether it's selling from someone 2 doors down or around the world, are now part of e-commerce. So it's been really exciting to see folks who would not traditionally be building their careers in tech, building them successfully through e-commerce.
I actually started in e-commerce just right out of college, and I am so grateful and excited now, all these years later, to be in the e-commerce industry because, to your point, it is truly, truly growing so much. So for business owners, what types of roles do they need to be hiring in e-commerce, and when is the right time for them to start expanding their team?
That's a fantastic question. So the aspect of, the business owner who's growing their business and saying what careers and what individuals should they start looking at? Well, if you think about what's going to make a successful store, right? Think of the business, and most business owners, right, understand from the start that it's about attracting new customers, right? So that aspect of SEO is not just putting words in a search engine. Right. So much of it is what's the brand of your business? How are you aligning your images with your products? How are you making that experience one that's going to continue to attract merchants or attract customers, and then bring them back to convert? So if you think of the careers that are involved in that, right, there's so many creative folks who could be starting off in photography. They could be copywriters. They could be areas where they're going to help you build that front end of the brand. The second area where folks don't think of as much growing, but have incredible return on your investment, right, is going to be finding people who understand what the customer journey is, right? And when I say that customer journey, that's going to be the folks that really, really focus on your team on what happens after someone gets to the store. So that's going to be careers on folks who are really good at understanding, here are the different integrations that can help out. So think of not only traditional store owners, but think about when you start looking at how you're going to grow your marketing, how you're going to work on your shipping, your taxes. Those careers on folks who may not be e-commerce experts, but are operational. They're really strong folks. And we at BigCommerce find the most successful folks on the sales and on operations side probably started off in customer service, right? They're people who understand how to speak to your merchant, whether you're in front of them or whether you're hearing the feedback via email, via social media, all the ways that you communicate with your customers.
And what should business owners consider when deciding to hire roles? Should they be hiring for people that already have the skills that the business owners excel at, or should they be trying to fill the gaps with room for improvement?
So the first one I always say is who's your customer, right? If you don't have people working for you who represent the people that you're trying to sell to, it's so much harder in e-commerce than it is in traditional commerce, right? If you're in a store or a shop and you can kind of see who's coming in your door and adjust the experience for them, right? You can put products somewhere else, right? You can make sure that things look differently. In e-commerce, it's so important to focus on, this is the type of person who's going to be buying from me. So the folks working for the company should have somewhat of that profile. And what makes that exciting is that can be all different type of folks who come from other industries, or who are just folks who buy your products, who are involved in that community, right? Who are going to reach those areas. So that's one of the things that I always challenge folks is, don't look at when you're trying to grow an e-commerce store saying, I need somebody who's been in the industry for 5 to 10 years. What you need to say is, wait a minute, is this person passionate about what I'm doing? And would they buy my product? If they buy my product, they're going to be much better at communicating and understanding what your customers are doing. So that's the high level, right, who to start looking for. When you start talking about the roles, which you brought up a great point, Beatrice, of, do you hire for what you're good at and supplement it, or do you look for gaps in what you're doing? One of the things we always suggest is say, if there's one part of your job that you currently do as a business owner that you are really, really good at, right, would you be able to give that up and train somebody else to do it as well as you are? If the answer is yes, then that's probably the first place you want to look at. If you're a traditional salesperson and you're really good at sales, you could probably teach another salesperson who comes in to be able to do that part of the business. And then you're focusing on the areas that you need to get a little stronger in. The plus part of that is also, it's probably not going to be as expensive or take as much time to bring on somebody who might be an expert in the industry, but maybe at a budget or may not really understand your business as much, to come in for those areas that you're not fantastic at, right? If you are such a good marketer, if you honestly know your folks so well, know who you're selling to, know that area, that arena so well that you can't give that up, then you should be looking at, okay, here are the parts that I spend right now that keep me away from putting time there. So maybe that is operations. Maybe that is looking at someone who's dealing with your support, right? If you're spending so much time on the nuts and bolts of the business that you're not able to help yourself continue to grow and speak to your merchants, then those might be the roles that you're going to invest in.
And like many things in business, it all comes down to budget. So walk me through a little bit about what business owners should be considering when it comes to creating a budget for growing their team.
Right. So that is a fantastic question, right? Again, we keep talking about return on investment is always the most important way of looking at when it comes to hiring individuals, to developing them, to training them, and to getting them really good at what you do for your business. Right? The biggest suggestion I always make when folks ask about how do I get the best people that are within budget, right? I'm going to say, is it somebody who is really successful at what they're currently doing, but maybe looking to shift careers a little bit, right? So if I take the example of somebody who might be in product, right, but they're in a traditional product, right? They're not selling, they're not engaged in e-commerce. They haven't been, right, their entire career there, but they really know how to position things, right? They might be good to take a risk on. Or you could look at someone who's, hey, I've got someone who I know on social media. I know somebody who is in our field or is talking about the product that I'm selling, right? Maybe they're interested to be involved in it because they want to be able to build their brand, right? And the final one, that there are so many, we're blessed at our time to have more college graduates coming out than at any time in human history, right? If you start looking at before these folks graduate, right? And it's not we talk about internships, right? I'm not saying it's a free internship where you're having folks working for you and not making that they're not making any money. However, I'm saying if you look at over the summers, look at them right when they're coming out, when they have a lot of energy, they have a lot of talent, but really need to learn about the field. We have such a long list of success stories of folks who first, second, third job that they really want to have the opportunity to build, to grow within the e-commerce industry. Right? So much talent. Is don't get caught up so much at looking at the resume of what people have been doing for the last 10, 20 years when it comes to e-commerce, because e-commerce didn't exist the way it does right now. Look for creative, talented folks. When you're looking in budget, it always works to look folks who have a little less experience and a lot of talent, or folks who are more experienced in a different field who you may want to transfer that over to e-commerce.
Building a team fit for growth has been a constant theme in today's conversation so far. How can business owners really make sure that they are facilitating that and they are creating a team that's built for that growth? And how does technology play into that?
Great question. So the first question of how do you build a team for growth? You're really going to want to make it that they understand the journey that your business is on. So if I think of my career growth, it really, really mirrors the companies that I've been involved in, and understanding in the e-commerce field that growth is going to come really, really quickly and the opportunities are going to be there. For business owners, that's the most important thing when you're bringing in talent, especially if it's talent who wants to grow, who wants to have their career as part of your mission, to understand how their contribution and how your business fits within the industry on growth. So let me give you an example. I had someone who worked for me, really talented, who came from a customer service background, who was involved and interested in working in not only video, but they wanted to work in marketing. Right? It's a tough transition. Most industries, difficult shift to go from being front-end customer service to then going into a creative field. Right? The opportunity for the business and for the individual was to try and find that balance, give them more opportunities to be able to get involved on the creative side while they kept the mentality of here's how it's successful in customer service, right? And it allowed us to take a very talented person who still did a good job, a very good job at what the business needed while we grew his career, right? So when you talk about that aspect of how do you build for growth, right? That answers a business need and it answers the future growth. When you ask about how does technology play in that, we are at just a wonderful time that it doesn't cost a lot of money to train your folks on things that are going to be successful in e-commerce. Right? Anyone can go online and figure out how to code. Right? The key is that for those talented folks, you need to help them with a roadmap. Right? If it's creative, like we talked about with the last individual, you can go online and learn about digital photography. You can learn about editing. Doesn't mean you're going to be very good at it without practice. So that aspect of how does technology go in, take all that free learning that's out there. If you need to invest a little bit on some more detailed, it's still going to be minimal amount of money you're going to have to put up front but you're going to have to give time. And that's the hardest thing in our industry, because things move so quickly, is you want to give meaningful projects. You want to have meaningful things that are going to help the business. And you built your business on risk. Right? To be a successful entrepreneur, especially in this field, you're going to have to take some risks. You're going to have to be able to say, we think this project is going to be exactly what we want to do to be successful, but we may not. Right? It may not be the perfect time and effort we need to do, but I'm willing to give the opportunity and give the time for talented folks to be able to develop their part of the career that is going to feed into the business. And when you think of e-commerce, where we went to that original question of, if you can't find 2, 3, 4 ways in e-commerce to help folks take on projects, take on opportunities to grow their business, then you're probably just not looking at the right areas, because there's going to be either creatively or from the opportunity of getting into future markets or building your store itself and the brand. So many great opportunities that you can use both the time, the growth of individuals, and the technology to build.
I think it's always really exciting for a business owner when they reach the stage where they get to expand their team, because essentially it means that they've taken their idea and their vision and they've really turned it into a reality and a thriving and growing reality. But obviously with expanding your team, that comes with letting go some responsibilities and really taking on more of a leadership role. What should business owners do to prepare themselves for that shift?
That is a big question, Beatrice. That is it's one of the, it really is. You always hear people say what made you successful can also be the blocker for you becoming more successful in the future. Right? Because managing people and then leading people is different than being the person who's hands-on building the business. So when we think specifically about our field, the first step when you find your business getting too big for you to handle anymore, right? It's growing too quickly for you to be able to do the things that you did to get to the point that you were of success, right? Of handling every order that came in, answering every message that came back and forth from one of your customers, right? All these things that you were so excited about originally building, when you identify the fact that you just can't do it anymore at the level that you want to, right? That's where step number one in that transition is being very, very self-aware on what behaviors you would want someone to do if they were working or when they're working for you to continue to let the business grow. So if you look at it from a standpoint, let's go technologically. Right? I have been involved in looking at the health of my business from an SEO standpoint, from a conversion standpoint, what third-party integrations we should have. All of that I was doing from a day-to-day basis. Right? Stepping back and saying, do we need the ability to analyze this better? Right? How can we use the tools that we have, the investments we have, to step back and analyze what decisions we made well and what we haven't? That's a huge, huge, scary aspect for someone to take and say, I'm probably not the person to do this. Right? I've been so involved that I'm going to need to bring in someone who can give a different perspective, who can look at things on saying, this was great when you were building up to $1 million company. Now you're trying to get to 5. Right? So that talent that's going to come in and challenge you, challenge the way you've done things, challenge the way you've looked at the market and the business. Right? So there's an honesty, there's a self-awareness to look at what you need to grow and who you need to bring in. Right? That's the first step. So that's when you're saying going from a doer to then a manager. Right? When you get to the manager part and you start looking at, as my business grows, here are the specific tasks and areas that I need very talented people to take off of my plate, right? So that I can focus on the health of the business. That's when you got to really define those things. And that's so hard to do because so many entrepreneurs are good because they're good, right? They've done it. They have experience explaining why they did it the way they did it, or how they did it over X amount of years to grow that. That's part of a leader, where you have to be able to be organized enough to allow other people to be successful. Okay? And that happens not just with roles and descriptions, but with the understanding of the business, the technology, the partnerships, all those things that have made your business successful. When it gets to leadership and developing yourself continually, the pat answer is find out people who are doing either what you're doing or have done what you're doing before, and surround yourself with them. That works. It works if you're looking to reinforce some beliefs and to really understand your business and your market a little better, but it doesn't always work when you're talking about building yourself as a leader, because you may find out that folks think very similarly. When I think about how that transition between manager and leader, and that step of where we talk about the folks who aren't going to think similar to you, I think back at 2 or 3 amazing leaders that I've worked for who said, look at what your competitors do better than you. And so if you look at folks who you really respect, who you compete against every day, right? To be a leader, right, that aspect is saying, why is my journey, why is my vision, why is my team a better spot for my people to invest their time, their career in, than my competitor, right? And that's a hard view when you look at it and said, this is the mission, here's what we're doing, so that you are going to feel proud beyond belief 2, 3, 5 years from now for being part of this journey. And if there are things that you wouldn't feel comfortable discussing or saying we're the right spot for you at this point in time, then it's your question of leadership. It's why are we going in this direction? And if I can't look at the people who are giving me the most important investment they have, which is their time and talent and career, then you need to start questioning, and you need to start looking and introspective on, here's how I've got to grow better as a leader. Here's how I've got to grow better as someone who is embodying the mission of a growing business. And here's how at the end of this, I'm going to be better because I was able to question, I was able to change if necessary, and I was able to allow the folks that I'm working with feel like they are completely a part of where the company is going and where our mission overall in the e-commerce field is forwarding. That they are, one of my old bosses said, this is a rocket ship that's going up, that we don't know where it's going, but we know that we're constantly fueling it along the way.
And last but not least, Kevin, what are a few key takeaways you have for our audience in terms of creating a growth-minded e-commerce team?
The first one by far is when you say surround yourself with talented people, right? Focus on the folks who are going to be buying your product, right? Your team should reflect who your customers are. And if that's the initial talent that you're bringing in, especially when you're growing on your first, second, and third investments, you know that they're going to be excited to grow at the company, and the skills that you need to build up for them to be successful in their roles, right? They're already going to have that understanding, that passion, right? That connection that's going to make them be customer focused. The second is embrace every aspect of the technology. And when I say the technology, it also means learning. We're in such a wonderful time right now that in the e-commerce field, the technology, the integrations that we can do to make the experience for our customer better is there, and the resources, most of them free, to allow the folks who we bring into our team to grow their careers, to learn more, right, is out there. You just need to organize those things the same way you organize your business to be successful, right? And the final thing, I know it's always scary of us with growth, but there's never growth without some little bit of risk attached to it, is when you bring these folks in, when your business grows, don't be afraid to give them projects that are a little bit challenging even for you. So allow them to take some risks. Allow them to look at different areas of your business and how to connect with your customers and how to grow that experience for them and for your customer. The more opportunities you give them to understand the industry, to understand your business, and understand your customers, the faster the business is going to grow. And with that speed, you're going to find yourself in the same problem that you're in now, which is you're going to have to find more of those talented folks because the business is picking up so quickly, the industry is so quickly. And that's the best problem that all of us run into is we have a lot more work to do than we can find talented folks to be able to do. And that's what's fantastic about this growing industry is there's always going to be spots for talented, risk-taking, intelligent folks to build their career along with the businesses in e-commerce.
That is awesome advice. Thank you so much, Kevin, for being here with me today virtually and for being part of the Make It Big conference.
Beatrice, it's my pleasure. I'm honored to be a part of it and really excited to see all of the folks in e-commerce keep growing and keep this industry just moving as fast as it is now.
That was such a great session with Kevin Buechler, Director of Learning and Development here at BigCommerce. Be sure to engage with us on social media using the hashtag MakeItBigConf and share what you've learned. And if you're looking for more insights, be sure to tune in to more Make It Big conference sessions by heading over to www.bigcommerce.com/makeitbig.